Okay. Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the Tiny Human Knits podcast. My podcast about knitting, sewing, and all manner of crafty goodness. My name is Laura. I'm not going to wait until the middle of the podcast to say that this time. I'm coming to you from High Level, Alberta, Canada, up in the middle of nowhere land, where everybody likes to sew, but nobody likes to knit. So, as I said last time, I started this podcast to keep in touch with the knitting community and my friend Elise, who I had to leave in Edmonton. She sort of suggested it. And, sorry, my bunny's running around in the background. Yeah, she suggested it, and I thought, why not? Because it's pretty isolated up here. Not only are we living on an acreage where we are about 15 minutes out of town, but also just there's no real knitters around here. It's all sewing people. There's a couple people who knit, but nothing like I'm used to. So I thought it was a great idea, and I really enjoyed doing the first one, and I cannot believe the response I got. Way more people watched it than I thought there was going to, and there were so many nice comments. A couple of questions, which there's one I'll get to later. I've just been really enjoyed the feedback. It was really nice. But yeah, I live here with my husband and my rabbit who's running around. You might see him in the background. He's a little puffball of black and white. He's also shedding like crazy right now. So if you see any like fluff floating in the air, that's his fur because he's molting. Right, bunny? He's great. So yeah. I am going to jump straight into what I'm wearing. This is a Brooklyn tweed pattern. It's called the Peabody sweater. I cannot for the life of me remember who designed it, so I apologize. I'll put it up on the screen. But I made it out of a Patton's Classic wool, which is just a cheap wool. You can buy it at Michael's, and I'm pretty sure you can buy it at Joann's as well. I bought it when I was working at Michael's. And I don't recommend, if you're a beginner knitter or an experienced knitter or a crafty person in general, don't work at Michael's. You make no money because you spend it all at the store. But yeah, so I made it a couple years ago and I've worn it a lot since. It's actually softened up quite a bit. Patton's Classic wool is a bit itchy. Not as bad as Knit Picks wool though, which I found out when I made another version of the sweater in a Knit Picks wool of the Andes. I find that's a little bit scratchier than the Patton's is. Oh, bunny, give me that. Oh, that's not for you. That's not for you. He eats everything. Don't you? Anyway. So I made it before I really had a firm understanding of dye lots. So I think I had bought 4 skeins of it, and one, I guess, was a different dye lot, so I don't know if you can see it, but right about here wise, it's a darker strip, and that is a different dye lot. Although, because it's knit from the bottom up and separated at the armholes, this was the second ball of yarn here, and I carried it up the back as well. It goes all the way up the back, but it almost looks like I did it on purpose, just about, which I don't mind it at all. It doesn't bother me. The sweater's comfortable, and I don't think I've ever had anyone comment on it either. So it's not like it really matters. But yeah, that's what I'm wearing. And it's super dry up here right now because everybody's tilling their fields and it's so windy. So there's a lot of dust in the house. So I've got a really dry throat. Now I will move on to works. Nope. I have a finished object. I showed this on the last podcast. I had finished one sock and I was just finishing. I just needed to do the heel and leg of the second sock. And that is my Regia Pairfect yarn socks. It's just a vanilla sock, toe up, 56 stitches on a 2.25 millimeter Addi Turbo, which is my standard sock, vanilla sock pattern for myself. And luckily also for my cousin who I make socks for, so I don't have to change anything about it. So yeah, the only patterning I did on this one is a self-striping yarn. I copied Candace of the Pin Feathers and Pearls podcast. And I did, every time there was a color change, I did knit 3 and slip 1. So I think that just adds a little bit of interest, and I really like it. And now that I've shown you, I get to wear them. So this is the second sock, just to show you that I did finish 2 socks. And those are my only finished objects for the day. I haven't had as much knitting time as normal because I started my new job, and I'm there for 9 hours a day, and I have to drive there and back, and by the time I get home I only have a couple hours to knit, but hopefully I'll figure out my my time management schedule here soon, because I'm not doing a very good job of that right now. Alright, so now I'll go into works in progress. I'm working on 2 projects right now. I keep a pair of socks for lunchtime and break time knitting at work, and then I have an at-home project, so something a little bit bigger, so it's a bit too clunky to take to work with me. The first one is the one I take to work. I'm keeping that in my hand-stitched monogram bag that I made myself. Bags like this are available on my Etsy shop. They're made to order though, so you have to just type in what letter you want, what colors you want. And I have the balls left over here. This is a red sock, blue sock yarn that we bought at River City Yarns. And this is it. So these are actually pretty great because the solid color is 115 grams. And then the contrast is 25 grams. So together it's 140 grams, which for me is plenty to make 2 pairs of socks. Because I finished 1 sock out of this, and that's right here. Ta-da! It's a Hermione's Everyday Sock pattern again, because that's what my cousin picked. And I really like the way the blue shows up the pattern so well because it is a solid. The ones I made were a tweed, so it was a bit hidden, but not too bad. And then the heels and toes are in this speckled yarn, which is so cute. The only problem about me knitting these at work is that the lighting there is so bad. It's the overhead lighting that it looks so dull when I'm working on it, and I'm afraid that I'm making it like so ugly. But I'll definitely have enough to make another pair of socks. I'm thinking of making the Rose City rollers. I had a pattern for a while and I haven't made them yet, and I feel like these 2 colors in that pattern are going to look stunning together. So the second sock is almost to the point where I can put in the heel. I'm about 2.5 pattern repeats away, and it's just really fun. When it's really slow at work or if I'm on break, I can just pull them out and work a couple of rows and it's no problem. Also, I should say, this is my 2.25 Addi Turbo sock needles. This is the only set of sock needles that I own. I don't have a huge collection of needles. I pretty much have the only needles I'll ever need, which is I have Addi lace interchangeable set, the short needles. And I bought them for myself for my birthday a couple years ago, and it's the best purchase I've ever made in my life. But these, I only have 1 pair of sock needles, so if I want to make socks, I have to finish the socks that I've already made. I would like to get another set just to do concurrent socks, but I don't think I'd want to cast more than 1 pair of socks on because I feel like they'd end up languishing a bit too much, and I like to get things finished quicker. I don't like having, I'm a pretty monogamous knitter, so I don't like having things sit for a really long time. But yeah, that's being kept in my bag here. And the second work in progress I have is something I also mentioned on the last podcast. It was one of my planned projects. It's for my sister-in-law. She ordered a sweater for me. She bought the yarn, and I'm just gonna knit up the sweater for her. She bought, well, she gave me complete license for yarn and pattern pretty much. So I picked out the Barocco Ultra Alpaca because it's one of my favorites. And she picked the color Cerulean Mix, which is beautiful. I'm really hoping I have some of this left when I'm done, because I'd love a hat or a pair of mittens in this. It makes beautiful mittens. I've made 2 pairs of mittens out of this yarn. It's in more of a purpley color. But I picked the Bedford sweater. It's also a Brooklyn tweed pattern because everything I make is Brooklyn tweed. It's designed by Michelle Wong, and it's going really well. I'm about 11 inches in. This is what it looks like so far. It's also a bottom-up pattern, and I think it's listed as 14 inches before you separate for the armholes. But I think I'm going to make them a little bit longer just because I want it to be a really oversized sweater, and I don't want it to look like a boxy crop top because that would look really weird. But no, it's going well. It's essentially a 2x1 rib, knit 1 purl 2, which on 270 stitches I can tell you gets really tedious, but it makes for really good TV knitting. So that's what I've got so far. And yeah, this is only the second ball, so I should have lots. It's my Woodland Friends bag, which I love. And yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now. I haven't been knitting as much as I wanted to. Honestly, if I was knitting with all of my time, this would have been done, I can tell you. But I'm trying to keep track of my Etsy shop as well. I have an Etsy shop called the Tiny Human Knits Etsy shop. And I've been trying to put in more bags. I like to do cross-stitch bags, which, to be fair, they do take a little bit more time because it's not just cutting out fabric and sewing it together. It's you actually have to make the design on the fabric before you cut it out and sew it together. But I've been trying to fill up my shop with that, and actually today I was supposed to do all the sewing for these bags, and my power was out for about 5 hours, which, perfect timing, right? My first day off in a while and power's out. But I got one project done. Stop that. I got one project bag done. I just made a pouch. I didn't want to make it anything specific because it is a pouch that anyone could use. And so yeah, I posted about this on Instagram. Bun, stop eating my desk! I posted about this on Instagram, and everyone seemed pretty enthusiastic about it. So without further ado, this is my Hogwarts House little pouch. And I'm thinking I'll probably make a couple of project bag sizes, like sock bag size, in the same pattern, but it is very time consuming. It doesn't look like much, but there are a very large number of stitches in this pattern. So if I do make them, they will be a little bit pricier, but that is because all of the work that goes in them. But if anyone has any interest or any suggestions, please let me know in the comments because that would be really great. I'm always looking for new ideas for things to put in the shop. And I should say, my shop is not... I make stuff that I like. I'm not trying to like make a huge bunch of things just to sell, but I want people to enjoy what I make, and so I make what I like, and if people like the same thing, awesome, because that's what makes me happy. I don't want to sell out. Is that right? Sell out? Yeah, I don't want to sell out. So that's that one, and then I had a couple panels made already cross-stitch for some crochet notions pouches, because I have some knitting ones already, and thought it was only fair that I put a couple crochet ones in. So this isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea, I can tell you that, but I think they're cheeky. So I made these panels. I have to sew them together yet, but here's one. It's my hooker. Got it in pink, in green, and then I have this natural color in a gradient, sort of autumnal. I love them. I almost wish I crocheted more just so I could have one of these to keep my crochet hooks in, but I have like 3. I don't really need a bag for that specifically. So I'm going to be sewing those up together later, and I'll put them in the shop, I think, on Saturday. So no, sorry, Sunday. Today is Saturday. Put them up on Sunday. So yeah, those will be in the shop, and if people like them, I'll definitely be making more, and if you want to request a particular color, I can absolutely do that as well. Yeah, so it's not just that I was working on. It was a lot of other cross stitches, but I can't show them right now because they're going to people that I want it to be a surprise. And I don't think they watch the podcast, but I just want to be sure that it's going to be a surprise. And so I was working on those, and so I haven't got as much knitting done as I would like. But hopefully next week, my time management skills will increase just a little bit. Holy jeepers. Bun, stop that. He's eating my desk. Yeah, so I don't have any acquisitions because I'm a poor person. So I'm going to move on to a question I had from a couple people in my YouTube comments from last episode. And that is, they want to know about that. That is a permanent fixture in my craft rooms, wherever they happen to be, and that is my wedding dress. It is my hand knit wedding dress. As soon as I was engaged, and I should just say I proposed to him, not the other way around, I knew I wanted to knit my own wedding dress from the get-go. I never wanted to go dress shopping. I always hated dress shopping. And wedding dresses are so overpriced. No matter where you go, they're way too expensive. And I wanted it to mean a little bit more to me personally. And I wanted to challenge myself and see if I could do it. So what I did is I actually had a magazine that I had bought from Michael's when I was working there. And it's a Debbie Bliss magazine. This is it. And if you can tell, it is the same pattern on the front of this as is the top of my wedding dress. So I have this from Michael's days. And it's just called the Sideways Knitted Sweater. It doesn't even say who designed it or anything. But the pattern's in here. And I had made the sweater before. Just in a shirt form. And that's this right here. So I had made this previously. And this is made exactly to pattern. And I had tried other patterns for the wedding dress before that. There's a couple classic designs that I was trying to work with, but it wasn't working, and my brain couldn't wrap itself around the idea of adjusting a pattern to fit what I wanted. Until I looked at this one. I remember that I made that shirt. I don't know why they call it a pullover. It's clearly a t-shirt. So I had remembered that I had it, so I looked in the magazine, and I figured I'm just gonna go for it. So I did some calculations, and I figured out that if I wanted a more fitted top, I needed to take a couple of the repeats out, which is super easy because this pattern, what you do is you cast on for the sleeves first. It's knit sideways. So you cast on for the sleeves, and then you work the first portion, and then you cast on stitches every couple rows for the body, and then you knit this way, and then when you get to the top of the sleeve cap, you cast off, and then you just work these stitches. And then you do the exact same for the other side, except the amount of stitches are where you start casting off. So it's really easy to take out a couple of the repeats to make a more fitted top. So all I did was stop before the pattern called for, and then you 3-needle bind off the two pieces together in the front and in the back, and then you pick up stitches around the collar. So that's what I did. I had a bit of a panic moment though when I was making the top, because when I 3-needle bound off the stitches in the front, I had accidentally dropped one, and I didn't notice until later. So all I did was I grabbed a piece of extra thread, threaded it through, and tacked it down. So after that, I cast on, it's two separate pieces that I sewed together. So I cast on the skirt just in a stockinette, and I cast on a size 1.5 millimeter needle. I have a set of 1.5 and 1.75, and that is the only thing I've ever used them for, is this. So I cast on the 1.5 here, just in as I started with a stockinette, and then I started in the pattern that starts here. So I have a stockinette going into the leaf pattern to match up the top and the bottom. And then I kept increasing my needle size as I went down to get up the flare up for my hips, quite wide hips. So I increased my needle size up until about here, and then I just knit it straight down. It was flat knitting. I just knit in one like big rectangle essentially. For hours and hours and hours and hours, I was doing the same four row repeat until I got to the length that I wanted, and then I bound off loosely, and then I very, very aggressively blocked it. I pinned it to my crafting floor because my blocking mats were not even near big enough. So I pinned it to the floor, and then I used my hand steamer to set it. And the reason I needed to use a steamer aggressively is because the yarn that I used for this dress is the cheapest yarn you'll ever find anywhere, because we had no money for this wedding, but I was determined. The yarn that I used was this, Loops and Threads Wool-like. And if any of you have ever gone to Michael's, you know this is crazy cheap. It's about $4 a ball, but I think I got it on sale, so I think I paid about $2 or $3. And I used 3 balls. So, oh no, 4. I used 4. So it cost me $12 Canadian in total to make this dress. That is it. I did have to buy a separate layer for the bottom, because otherwise I'd just be walking around in a see-through dress, which wouldn't have gone over very well. So I bought a just a plain white floor length dress, like a strappy top, from Forever 21, and it's clearance section, so it was $20. So altogether, approximately after tax and everything, my wedding dress cost me $35. Just $35. Our whole wedding, I was going around bragging about that because my husband's bow tie cost $70. So I just keep talking about how my wedding dress was half as expensive as my husband's bow tie. It'll never cease to amuse me as long as I live. And the shirt that I made was in the same wool-like. I actually have quite a bit of it. I've made a few sweater patterns with 3 strands of wool-like held together, which is not the best quality material, but it still looks good. Personally, for me, if I use this, you use 2 strands of one color and 1 of another, because it gives sort of a variegated look without being super expensive. I made my mom a couple sweaters out of that type of yarn, and she really loves them, so don't need to change a good thing. So yeah, that is the dress. If people want to see, I might try to find a picture from my wedding. We didn't have a professional photographer, so there's not really very many well choreographed photos. There's a lot of nice photos, and I really liked our wedding because it was very, very low key. But if you want to see, I'll definitely post one. But yeah, that was the main thing that people wanted to know about. So yeah, might just blather for a bit. It has been crazy warm here. It's almost every day it's been sunny. And if anyone can tell if my face is red, that is because I am actually allergic to light. Inside lights aren't too bad, unless they're like industrial kind of lights, but I can't go outside in the sun for too long because I will break out in a rash and I'll get really itchy and I'll get a fever, and it's genuinely just, ugh, it's awful. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I'm just glad I have the darkest skin tone of anyone in my family, because then I don't look like a complete vampire all the time. So yeah, if my face is red, that's why. Nothing's really been going on. I've been working almost every day. That's going really well. It's tedious work, but I enjoy it. I like paperwork. I like being busy. So I've really been enjoying that. I've been like making a lot of stitch markers as well, and I'll be posting those onto my shop just for fun. Because I know I really like stitch markers, handmade stitch markers, so they won't be very expensive, but they'll just be a little bit of fun. What else? nothing's going on. I don't do anything. I just sit at home and craft. And after you show that sort of just like empty space, I'm driving myself to work every day, and anyone who knows me knows that I hate driving. I didn't drive for a good 8 years between the ages of 20 and now. So I'm getting really used to it, although I find I'm a really bad driver. I'm a bit too, I make decisions too quick when I'm behind the wheel, so I scare myself sometimes. There's that, and I keep adding to my nitpicks wish list, which is not doing myself any favors at all. I'm gonna have to pare that down a little bit before I actually order. But we get paid for the first time soon, so I should be able to put in an order soon. Hopefully. Yeah, though that's essentially my week. 2 weeks. My 2 weeks. We went to a greenhouse last weekend, and we got one of those trays that has a bunch of little soil pods in the bottom, and you slowly add water to them and get them to expand, and then you can plant. I think usually they're used for flowers. I planted beans, and within 2 days they were all sprouted, and you could probably watch them grow. They're like this tall now, and I planted them on the weekend, on Sunday, so it's only been 4 or 5 days. So we really need to get to work on tilling our garden so we can actually plant them in the garden. Otherwise, I'm just going to have a bunch of dying bean plants inside my house. I don't know. I didn't expect them to grow that fast. Besides that, that is it. That's all my life. It's very dull. If anyone has any suggestions again, for what I could talk about, any questions, anything you see in the background, or anything you want to know about my life, again, I'm an open book. I will tell you pretty much anything. I have already been not told off, but like it's been mentioned to me at work that I need to be a little bit more careful about what I talk about, because I can't really see who's around because we're in a sort of like corner room in the back, and I have a really loud voice, so my supervisor did tell me to tone it down a little bit. Story of my life. But yeah, just let me know. Besides that, yeah. Any suggestions? Any bags you want to see in the Etsy shop? Yeah. Check me out on Ravelry and on Instagram and Etsy, and join the Ravelry podcast group if you'd like. It's Tiny Human Knits Podcast in the groups tab. And yeah, any suggestions would be helpful. I'm still starting out. I'm still super awkward. So any help is good help. So I'm going to try to get this up by tomorrow, and yeah. So again, at least you didn't give me any feedback last time. You just thought it was good. You needed to give me feedback. So yeah, I'm gonna go and relax and sew a little bit. So I will see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye.